We are trying to find a solution for the future. The less they know the outside world, the better it is.
How do you see the non-Hasidic world?
Non-Hasidic or secular?
Second.
Insane. Totally insane.
First of all, people are part of the Hasidic community for several reasons. One, because they like it. Second, because this is all they know.
In order to preserve their unique identity and traditions, they believe that they should remain isolated from the rest of the world. So when I grew up, I wasn't allowed to intermingle with anyone.
So it's a tight-knit community that is there for you as long as you fit their profile of how you look and how you behave. As soon as you deviate from that path, they block you out.
Think about it, if you're poor and you're part of the Hasidic community, they'll take good care of you to some extent. You'll get food packages, for holidays, and some would even employ you just because you're part of our community. If you decide to leave, you risk losing all of that.
About 2 years after I dropped out of yeshiva, this friend who I mentioned, he said that my class is having a reunion. He asked me to go. And then he kept pressuring me, so eventually I was like, okay, I'll just show up. So I show up there, I'm in my jeans and t-shirt, and they're all in their black hats and coats, and everyone's looking at me oh wow. They started asking me what I do. They were all oh, do you smoke, do you drive, do you do drugs, all those stuff. So I explained that no, I'm actually in school and I'm studying all these studies. And so one of my friends, he's actually really smart, he asked me you mentioned math, what do you study in math? So I was actually studying AP Calculus. I obviously couldn't tell him I'm doing calculus because he would have no clue what I'm doing. So I just told him I'm learning advanced math. So he looks at me what do you mean by advanced math? Fractions? I'm Jay, or Chaim, 19 years old. I'm currently at the University of Pennsylvania. Just started my freshman year. And I grew up in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, in the Hasidic community. But when I grew up, I wasn't, I wasn't allowed to intermingle with anyone outside of the community. So the only people I would talk to would be other Hasidic boys who looked exactly like me, had the long curls, the black hat. And we didn't have any internet, no movies, no TV. I didn't know anything about pop culture. I didn't know who Lady Gaga is. I didn't know anything about even Mozart or Shakespeare, any of that. I didn't really know anything much about the civil rights movement or US history or global history, except for Jewish history.
Did you know about, had you heard of Beatles?
Never heard of the Beatles. When I was 7, my parents separated and my father started going to college, which is also something that's not allowed in the community. Afterward, he introduced me to science and other cultures. And I was immediately fascinated because, as I said, that was the only time I was able to learn all this stuff. And that kind of made me think outside the box. I realized that there's this whole world out there. Even though I live in New York City, not some third world country, I'm in New York City surrounded by all these opportunities. And at some point I realized that, I'm fascinated by science and math, and that's what I want to pursue. But I knew that it's an unrealistic dream. The only way I could study that would be by attending a school outside of the community, and no one does that because the community school is not just a school, but it's kind of integral to the community. It's a fabric of the community. Everyone goes to community school. So if you leave, you're basically means social suicide. You lose all your friends. And then one day in spring of 2013, I went up to my mother and stepfather and I told them that I'm dropping out of yeshiva. And honestly, even now when I think back, I'm shocked that I did it. I still don't know how I found the courage to do it. But somehow I found it and I told them that I'm dropping out. So they hope that one day I go back and realize the truth and go back to yeshiva. As much as it's sad that they're really unhappy with me, I can't just live my life for others.
So for me, it was a long transition. I don't feel like I made a break. It was slowly figuring myself out as I distanced myself from the community. There were a lot of obstacles. I was 14 years old when I left, and I didn't go to school until I got to college. Then there was not knowing how to dress. How do normal people dress? Because I'm used to dressing a certain religious way. How to behave in the city. How to talk to boys. My name is Bina Aaron. I'm a second semester sophomore at Amherst College. I'm studying neuroscience, and I'm from the Hasidic community in Borough Park in Brooklyn. So I was introduced to the outside world, you can say, when I was about 12, and my grandfather used to take me with him to work in the city. He worked in the Diamond District, and I guess I saw that there was a different way of living. And I began to express my interest in it while I was going through 8th grade and 9th grade, and my school didn't like that. So it was more about the way I behaved. I would open my top button. I didn't want to be choked anymore. I wouldn't wear the thick tights that they wanted us to wear. I spoke with my classmates about different ideas. For example, the fact that we have periods, and they didn't like that. I had an iPod at the time that I wasn't allowed to have, and that was my outlet. I explored the internet a lot. I used to stand at the corner of my block and use the free Wi-Fi for hours, just finding out everything that there was out there. Ideas, like what is philosophy? I had no idea what that was. Or evolution, or things that I wasn't allowed to know about. So I came home one day and my iPod was gone. I couldn't find it anywhere. I went into school that day and I was called by my principal, and they told me that I had two options. I could either put a filter on the internet of my iPod and keep it and they'll let me stay, or I won't be able to come back. And I went back home to think about it, and then I just never returned. It was getting really difficult for me to keep living at home while keeping up my lifestyle. I wanted to wear jeans in the house, I wanted to dress a certain way, but my mother asked me politely not to because of the influence it would have on my siblings. So I decided to move out, and I moved into an apartment with my boyfriend. They really didn't want me to leave because they knew that once I would leave, they would lose the ability to kind of influence me and to come back to the community.
Because that was still their hope.
Yeah, it probably still is. So I waited until I was about 17 to go to get my GED. I studied for it on my own, and after that I went to Kingsborough Community College for 2 years. Yeah, I was taught a lot growing up to not get along with people from different cultures and different race than me. But when I came to school and I met these people, I realized that everyone is just the same, and yeah, it took a while to reinforce it, but it was really exciting. The first time I went to buy a pair of jeans, I didn't know how to read or understand their sizes. I didn't know. There were so many different shades and colors, and I didn't know which one to choose. But when I tried it on, it felt really great. And I still wasn't able to walk around with it in the community. I was afraid of people seeing me in pants, but I would just stand in the mirror and look at myself in jeans, and it was exciting. They were the label of being OTD.
So OTD, right? Off
Derech.
and what does that mean?
Off the derech is the term given to people who choose to leave the community. Generally, when somebody decides to leave the community, they are ostracized by their family, friends, and community. That wasn't the case for me because my parents were very supportive, thankfully. But a lot of my friends went through that.
I grew up in the Hasidic community. I grew up in Borough Park. I was part of the Belz Hasidic sect. This often comes up as to whether I'm still Hasidic and whether I'm considered an insider or an outsider. But I'm an insider, and I have the scars to show for it because I myself was deprived of an education, and it really cost me dearly. To this day, I had actually initially wanted to become a psychologist, and I was never able to pursue that dream, and I ended up getting an MSW, a Master's in Social Work, simply because it would have been way too much to take the GREs, which depends a lot on knowledge that you accumulate throughout the years, which I didn't get until the age of 20. I didn't realize how poor my education was compared to others. In psychology, we talked about do you remember where you were when the verdict for O.J. Simpson was announced? And everyone was like, yeah, sure, I remember. And I'm like, who's O.J. Simpson? Those are the kinds of things that would come up, meaning the professor's trying to use some example. Instead of responding to the example, I'm asking, what does the example mean?
We are trying to find a solution for the future. The less they know the outside world, the better it is. You want us to educate our children more in the secular world. What secular world are you talking about? Do you want to become a Madoff? Or do you want to become a Microsoft? What part do you want them to become? Because at the end of the day, God tells you what's going to happen, and all you have to do is show a little effort.
They are terrified of people getting new ideas, having any exposure to the world and learning about other people and about accepting of different ideas. So that exists too.
Everybody's a professor, everybody became a psychologist and a gynecologist, and they can fix you for $500, they can fix the mother and the daughter. Wasted money thrown out the window. Just be a little patient. If you think your child went off, make believe the child is sick. Would you throw the sick child out? No. Let him get it out of his system. See what happens in time.
I realized that in public school or out there, like everyone is different. Everyone has their own tradition, their own background, their own family. So being different is what makes you like the same as everyone. And when I realized that, I'm like, you know, like, yeah, I grew up Hasidic and I'm different, but so is everyone else. Everyone has their own life story, their own like traditional beliefs. And I realized that being different is what makes me one of everyone. And then that helped me a lot to just put myself out there and realize that I'm not as different as I think I am.
And I still go visit all the time. It feels weird when I walk down 13th Avenue. It's like Times Square of Borough Park, and I just don't feel like I belong there anymore.
You know, now I'm really happy. I made high school, I made a lot of new friends. In college, I made a lot of friends, so it's really exciting. And getting to meet people from all these different backgrounds and cultures is actually one of the most exciting aspects of my new life.
Like in the community, you're stuck in this position where you have to take care of 9 to 12 kids and take care of your husband, and the husband does the work. But here I can create my own career path, I can learn anything that I want, and I can make my own decisions.